Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Good day. Today I'm going to discuss and share with you my very little knowledge about statistics. The title of my discussion that I'm going to share is all about statistical tool, the selection and strategies based on a research scenario or situation. Selection of a statistical tools is somehow a common mistake in undertaking research. So, if the statistical tool is incorrect, the result of the study becomes misleading and, of course, poor conclusions. So, having a knowledge in the correct selection of statistical tools based on a particular research situations or scenario may help researchers in drawing rigorous and good conclusions. Generally, a research is divided into two parts. We have the theory and the method. Theory is a system of ideas intended to explain something, while method is a particular procedure for accomplishing or approaching something. So in doing a research, it must be the theory that dictates what the methodology should be in a study. It should not be the methods that dictates what theories or ideas to be included in a particular research. So in doing a research, title should not be formulated in the beginning or early stage of doing a research because it can be derived after the completion of the study or it can be derived after the methodology has been established. So in doing a research, there are types of research scenario. We have univariate and multivariate. This research scenario is formulated based on derived ideas from literature or studies which form these situations as conceptualized by the researcher. So in univariate, uni means one, variate means variable. Univariate means there is only one dependent variable, regardless of the number of independent variable or IV. And then multivariate is about um, having two or more dependent variables. So this is an example of univariate research scenario. Take note that the dependent variable of univariate research scenario is only one, and regardless of the number of independent variables or IV. Let's take a look at multivariate research scenario. In this scenario, the dependent variable is consisted of two or more dependent variables. Another term that is used in a research scenario is the word bivariate, but it is not a research scenario and it only determines the relationship or refers only to the relationship between independent and dependent variable. Because arrows has its own meaning or purpose based on a research scenario. If in a research scenario, or shall we call it conceptual framework, if the arrow used is double-headed, it is a correlational type of research. And the keywords that you can look at in the framing of question or statement of the problem is the term significant relationship. So if the The arrow used is single direction or unidirectional. You can conclude that the study is comparative or can be comparative or predictive. And the hint in determining if it is comparative is the word significant difference. And for predictive is the word significant effect, affect, impact, or predict. So in this research scenario, it shows how the variables are translated into a research question. So it can be framed like this as an individual question, or it can be framed as a group. So let's take a look at the application of the arrows as previously discussed earlier. So a single-headed arrow is pointed to program awareness that comes from the attendance. So the framing of the question can be translated into this. For example, do attendance of the respondents significantly predicts their program awareness? Or you can be more specific about do attendance of the respondents significantly influence their program awareness or it significantly affects their program awareness. As explained also earlier that a single-headed arrow could connote difference. So the framing of question could be, is there a significant difference in the program awareness of the respondents when analyzed based on their work motivation? Lastly, as you can notice, the income and program awareness has this um, double-headed arrow, which means uh, the the research scenario here in these two variables is that they have um, a relationship, a proposed or assumed relationship with each other. So the question that can be framed is like this: is there a significant relationship between um, respondents' income and their program awareness? Somehow it is a little bit confusing what makes a research scenario predictive and what makes it productive. To give us an answer, we have to know the level of measurement or nature of so a researcher must familiarize himself or herself about the level of measurement or nature of data, which are nominal or ordinal, interval, and ratio. Nominal data refers to those data that have category or groupings, like for example, male and female. Also those that are in categories like religions, for example, Islam, Catholic, INC, and so on and so forth. It also includes those data that have unique attributes like thumb mark, code, and ID number. Second is ordinal. Ordinal refers to data that are in ranks or order, like for example, first, second, and third. It could also refers to the ranking of a police officers and educational attainment like level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Then interval and ratio in SPSS, they are actually taken as one. They are called scale. But specifically, interval data refers to those data with a zero number that has a value or meaning. For example, 0 degrees Celsius or 0 degree Fahrenheit is a very cold number, which means the temperature is very low. However, for ratio, the zero has no value. Like for example, no balance or no money, which means it has no value or it has no meaning at all. So this is the table of analysis, and this is a summary of how to select properly or correctly the statistical tool based on a particular research scenario. So in analyzing a research scenario for the selection of appropriate statistical tool, we have to look at the in this column the analysis required and the level of measurement or nature of data that has been discussed previously. So in the analysis required, we have to identify if a research scenario is correlational, comparative, and predictive. Okay, so if for example, if a research scenario is correlational, so we have to look at the level of measurement of data. So for example, if a data in a variable is scale and it is in correlational research situations, so the appropriate statistical tool is Pearson R. So there are considerations in identifying the analysis required. Number one, the number of dependent variable. Second, the level of measurement of dependent variable. Third, the number of independent variable. And fourth, the level of measurement of independent variable. So these are the considerations. Number one, if the number one consideration is if the number of dV is only one, we have univariate, and if it is composed of two, it is called two or more, it is called multivariate. And then if dV is scale, it is called linear. And if dV is non-scale, it is called nonlinear. Then if IV is only one, it is termed as simple. And if it is two or more, it is termed as multiple. In the case of the level of measurement of IV, if all are scale, which means all independent variable are scale, which means variable 1, 2, and 3 in the independent variable are interval or ratio, then the type is regression. And if some are scale, which means number one variable is nominal, second variable is ordinal, third variable is nominal, but the fourth variable is scale, we also name it regression. However, if all of the variables are nominal, we name it ANOVA. So let's try some examples based on the research scenario. So in this scenario, we have a simple example, the variable income and program awareness. And the data attributes in income is numerical, which means the income is measured from 0 to infinity. So simply, the level of measurement is scale. Second, for the attendance, it is also measured from 0 to 100, which means it is also scale in terms of level of measurement. So let's try to make a question out from this research scenario. So how many questions? Simply, in this example, we have three. And this is how the questions can be framed. But take a look at the number three SOP or statement of the problem or how the questions was framed. Do income of the respondent significantly influence or predicts? Take note of this keyword significantly influence or predicts because the arrow used in the scenario is single-headed arrow. So let's apply the considerations that we have discussed earlier. So in applying the considerations, number one is what is the Number of dependent variable. How many dependent variable? We have only one dependent variable. And if only one dependent variable, it is called univariate. Second consideration is what is the level of measurement of dependent variable. So the level of measurement of dependent variable is scale. And if it is scale, it is called linear. If it is non-scale, it is called non-linear. Number three considerations is in the part of the IV or independent variable. So in this, how many IV are there? So there is only one IV, so it is called simple. Otherwise, it would be multiple. Okay? And number four is what is the level of measurement of IV? So the level of measurement of IV is scale, and it is considered or termed as regression. So if you're going to um, prescribe a statistical tool out from this research scenario, it will become like this: simple linear regression. We do not include the univariate because it is understandable that this scenario is univariate research because how many dependent variable? There is only one dependent variable. So in this, the statistical tool that we can possibly prescribe out from this conceptual framework along with the framing of the question or statement of the problem is simple linear regression. So simple linear regression. We could just play with the arrangement of the word to make it correct because in the book there is no such as linear simple regression. So we can arrange that into simple linear regression. So we can also use the table of analysis as our guide and making decisions of the appropriate statistical tools based on the research scenario. So earlier from the example, we um, have framed that the research scenario is in a predictive type of research. So the table of analysis required says that it's in predictive and the level of measurement of data is scale. However, we have to look at the DV. How many DV are there? There is only one DV and it is linear. And how many IV are there? It is only one, so simple. So we can name it simple linear regression. So part of the exemption of this discussion or sharing is the complicated part of a quantitative research. In this example, I am just showing you the possible features of the multivariate type of research in which there is an extended uh, part of dependent variable. And this type of research is a path analysis. And further, another example is this study which shows having a mediating variable or intervening variable that influences dependent variable. So let's take a quick pitch on this research scenario. The motivation, attendance, income, and program awareness as variables. So this has been established because of literature and theories that was read by the researcher. And the ARUS was also established because of an evidence-based studies that motivation, attendance, income can influence program awareness of the respondents. And by looking at this picture, we can actually translate it into a question or statement of the problem. So it could be stated as what is the motivation, attendance, income, and program awareness of the respondents. And second is, um, does motivation significantly influence program awareness? Same goes to attendance, significantly program awareness. Does income significantly influence program awareness? And with that, we can also determine the methodology statistics part of a research. So by looking at this, we can derive that motivation, attendance, income, and program awareness has descriptive nature. So we can enlist number one, descriptive, and then next is the arrows. So which means it is predictive or direct influence. So we could write predictive. And we could examine the level of measurement of these the variables, and so we could decide on the appropriate statistical tool. So I would like to share the possible pathways or directions of a student or researcher doing a research, as he or she may enlist the possible topics from the most interested to least interested, and do a review of literature about it to validate the existence of data or knowledge if it is well known or unknown. And if it is unknown topic or research interest, a student may do qualitative study. And if the topic is well known or rich in literature, the student or researcher may do scooping review, systematic review, or may play the the numbers of research results and do meta-analysis and data mining. Or the student also may do the usual way of doing a research, like adapting a questionnaire, then gather data to have a full-blown study or complete research. And it is also uh, important if a questioner develop a questionnaire to subject it to validity and reliability. However, the procedures also do could be also converted into a studies, like in validating a questionnaire. It could be uh, it could be improved into a validity studies like content validity and construct validity to establish the accuracy of the questionnaire. So it could actually measures what it intends to measure. And then further is it could be subjected into reliability studies for the improvement of the questionnaire. So a researcher or student may do test, retest study, or comparative reliability study to establish high consistency in terms of reliability of the questionnaire. So that the researcher or student developed questionnaire are has undergone a robust um, procedures in validating and reliably testing and in further creating that questionnaire. So that's all for my presentation, and thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something from this very little sharing of knowledge that I have about statistical tools, its application based on a research scenario or situation.